Hey everybody, so welcome back to these tutorials. I'm just here back in the UV editor, and I just want to say I respect the spaces that we have, and I hope that this digital tutorial will help you get through maybe the finer complexities of the texturing. So in the last tutorial, I had kind of like did a gaffe. And it's basically that idea of where these edges just don't match up. And we can see here there's like a little bit of a, something that just shouldn't be there. This color doesn't match up with this face. And really, I did a dirty cut of this UV map. I mean, from afar, it actually works. But if someone was to get really close up into it, they'd be like, oh my gosh, this is kind of like a sloppy job. I tend to like err on being a little bit all over the place with this stuff, but I think maybe for those who want finite skills in developing how to apply a texture, this might help a little bit more. So in this model, and there's also a lot of things about this that I'm about to show you that might be only applicable for models with like a simple polygonal surface, so that don't have that many faces, don't have that many divisions, and the UV map will just work better. For something like the arm, or at least my arm, I have a lot of faces on here, so what I'm about to go into might not apply well to something like this, but it would apply to probably the legs, definitely the body section, and definitely the head. So right now I have my UV editor window over here, and it can easily be opened and collapsed. And I'm just going to open it right now. And we see that I have my UV texture kind of here, and the head should pop up right about there. All right, so we can see that the head right now is in a planar view, and it has those cuts that I made before. Outside of the area, I kind of moved it off, and it's picking up a little bit of that eyebrow back in this corner. So we can see that it just doesn't really, that's what that is right there. It's just picking up the eyebrow just a little bit, literally a hair. And we want to kind of figure out a different way of doing this, or at least I did. I wanted to figure out a better way of doing this. And this might be the way. So I have this already set in object mode, and I'm going to go to my UV editor, and actually instead of doing planar, I'm going to do cylindrical, and that remaps my my surface. This kind of like channel box that you see here, this is the cylinder that it's mapping on. So it's basically you can expand this or you can contract it. But I'm going to leave it as is because it kind of pretty much covers exactly the proportions I need to do this remapping. And you can see that as I hover over each individual faces, it lights up here. This line right here, there's a face that has a line to it. That's just the top face, and those can be probably moved down or readjusted. But I'm really gonna focus on what we have. So in doing this, I can see that these smaller faces is where I'm beveled. So you can see down here as I highlight them, that's the bevel faces, and I'm going to do a cut just right along the first face or first edge that bevels. I'm going to go over into UV, and I'm going to use instead of using these tools, I'm going to use this 3D cut and sew tool. And I'm just going to double click that, and that makes a line all the way across that separates everything above the beveled edge. If I press Command Z, I can actually click and drag, and it'll cut along that edge. So I'm keeping my finger on the left button, and I'm just dragging and cutting. But because I want to save time and there's an easy cut here, I can just do that. So now these two surfaces are separate in this cut and sew, and I know that this was easier for me to read, so I wanted to separate this whole area as one surface to work with. And I'm going to go into basically the UV shell mode. So I'm going to get out of the UV cut, exit the tool, and go into UV shell. And now I have this whole top shell that's separate. It's a separate face from what this is. And I'm going to go ahead and minimize this and maybe bring it over some. I'm going to click the center of this and just put it here so it all fits. That top face could also be cut too, but this kind of like right now works for me. But let's see, I'm just going to, this might not work, but I'm going to try it anyway. I'm going to go back into this UV cut and sew tool, and I'm just going to cut this edge off, and we'll see if I can move just that. So I'm going to exit the tool and go into UV shell. It doesn't look like it took it out, but there might be a way to separate those two things. And I'm going to actually, it just requires you to play around with it. I'm going to shrink this down. I'm going to move it over to about here. And then I'm going to raise it back up. Something like that. Maybe like that. Drag it over. I just want to make sure it's all in the box, more or less. And that looks like it works okay for the top of the head. Okay, so my head looks pretty good, and I can also apply a color, but because we're working with this texture map, I'm going to use that. So I have the other part of the head down here. Oh, I moved that. I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to scroll down here. And I'm going to apply that UV cut tool again, that 3D cut and sew tool. I'm going to double click here. And that gives me this whole section as the middle part of the head, so where the graphics for the face would go. I'm going to go ahead and go into, get out of this, go into exit the UV tool. And I'm clicking down here to exit that tool. And I'm going to go into UV shell, click this. And it's left click. I'm usually using left click. Minimize this, option, center mouse click drag, move this over here, bring it closer in, and minimize it some more. Perspective wise, I want it to be around the same size. And I'm going to look at this face a little bit more closely. I'm going to kind of line up some edges. Right now I can see that her face is just way blown out, so it's kind of too big. So what I'm doing is I'm making sure that her face fits in, you know, the eyebrows, everything fits into the lines of the faces, so there's no bleed off right here. There's a little bit like going into here, but I'm gonna maybe even, yeah, I'm gonna move this over some. So I'm actually gonna increase it just a bit so it hits the edge of that yellow line. Move it over, right? And try to fit it a little bit better. So right now her face covers these edges. So I'm going to take that UV cut tool again. I'm going to do this cut and sew, and I'm going to cut this face, and I'm going to cut this face. And then I'm going to go back into exit tool. I'm going to go into UV shell, take that, make it smaller, or I'm sorry, make it larger here, right? So I'm going to extend it until I feel like her face is about right. And there's still some, like, there might be some strange overlap, so I'm kind of still guesstimating stuff here, but this is kind of like a quicker way of showing you what I'm actually doing. So I could actually make her face maybe a little bit different. So if I want to like bring this in some, I'm kind of like, you see what I'm doing? I'm kind of like giving her a little bit more of a proportional look. And these overlap, but it still might look a little bit better than it did before. I'm going to just kind of click outside, go into object mode, and just see what happens. So, all right, I still have some of these edges that are kind of like weirdly meshing, but I think it might work better to do something like this. So I'd have to be a little bit more, on point with how I follow these lines. So maybe this, going back into the UV shell mode, this might move like up and over. I might have this kind of go like this, and maybe that this final face will match up better when it hits kind of that area. And we can kind of see like where I'm actually trying there we go. That might match up a little bit better. So I'm using both windows, and I can kind of see that line kind of matched up a little bit better between these two, right on this edge basically where my mouse is hovering. I can see that the texture is kind of lining up nicely, or a little bit better than it was before. Again, maybe I want her brow to be a little bit higher, so it's something like that. And I have that last part of the neck area down here, so it should still be in UV shell mode because it highlights kind of red. And I'm going to bring that down and bring it over and bring it up. So that's kind of where I'm at with the face. It's a little bit better than it was before. At least I feel like, or I can find ways to make it better by being in that cylinder mode. To further go into this, like if I wanted to, sorry, I didn't mean to do that, but if I wanted to map out, say, the legs, oh, well, her face is reversed, but let's kind of like, I can just go into object mode and kind of spin her head around to make that go to the front, right? So there we go. All right, so I'm going to go into the leg, and you can see that this is kind of how the leg is mapped out. So it's hard to read, and this, I don't know what mode this is in, but I know that I just don't know what is what. I know that this might be like that center, wheel area. But if I go to deform, or I'm sorry, if I go to UV and I go to cylinder, this is a much more readable version of the leg. So I know that this is one side, it's one of these faces down here, right? And that's another face over there. These are the edges. This is the middle portion. So you can see how it's highlighting over here. And again, this is in cylinder view. So if I wanted to cut, if I apply my UV map, which I could do right now, but I'm not going to. If I apply that UV map, or maybe actually I will do it right now. I could apply that Phong layer. So hold on one second. Go to rendering. I'm going to go to object mode, and I'm still looking at the UV editor here. I'm going to apply. Let's just apply this material right here. So we have a blend 3. I'm going to go to color. I'm going to upload a file. I'm going to click that again. I'm going to go to right here, open it, and I see that it's applied. So you can see that the leg that they had marked, whatever this, if I go into, again, to object mode, or actually go into UV shell, I can figure out a little bit better where I want to cut. So I know that this edge right here, if I go into face mode, this isn't going to be seen, but this is, right? And I know that I can go into this UV cut, UV right here, and cut along the edge. So I'm just going to double click there. I'm going to double click here, double click here. Well, let's not do that double click. Let's just drag it and then drag it here. So that should cut out what that leg is. And maybe even, let's see if that does anything. I'm just gonna double click that and see if it did anything. I'm gonna take this UV shell, and that's a whole shell right now, right? So that applies to just that portion of the leg. I can better maybe move it around and understand where I want to place it. So I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller, and it just seems to fit better rather than being in planar mode. I'm just gonna put it over a red area. I don't really know what the map is supposed to look like, meaning I don't know what exactly is supposed to refer to the leg, but I figure it's supposed to be a red, and I can just drop that here. And I know that the front of the leg, when I get ready to cut it out, I can just figure out, oh, these apply to the front, right? I can cut that with my 3D UV cut tool while I'm in the cylinder. I'm in the cylindrical mode. I go to my 3D cut and sew tool, and I just kind of like put this and apply it to where that area is on the left leg, right? So down here in this little like section. And that should work. I don't see why it shouldn't, but let's go ahead and try it. And really, as I'm in my UV shell mode and everything is unselected or selected, I'm actually just going to select, this has already been cut apart. I'm just going to select the faces that apply to that leg, to the front of that leg, and I'll probably just kind of move over here so we can better see it. And hopefully it'll just drag over. Yep. I'm going to shrink it down to about the size that I need. Move it again. And this is a really rough and dirty rendition of it, but something like that. Zoom in, and then click on each individual face, and it looks like I haven't really looked at the Vanda Dark Flame, but I'm guessing this is her foot, and the pant leg is supposed to kind of go up. So I'm going to see if I can just select these faces and kind of bring them in with the scale tool. So I'm just going to kind of, do something like that. And these look like, if it was an animation and the leg was moving, I could do something like that. I haven't even gotten to the belt yet though, but just going into object mode over here, that works out more or less like I would imagine it should look like, but maybe it needs to be redone a little bit more. But you can see that the red side looks okay. I'm going to kind of minimize this right now so that you can see that this is slowly coming together, right? And the UV editor has helped mainly because I was in that cylindrical mode. To further kind of move this along, you're going to want to start getting into rendering, and we'll kind of do that next. So I thank you, and until the next one, take care.